How's it going, everyone? Jiivita here with a release overview for testing 246. This is essentially an expansion on testing 245, which added Sovereign Worlds. If you're unfamiliar with what Sovereign Worlds are, you might check out my previous video over that test release, but in a nutshell, Sovereign Worlds are basically private planets or a planet that you can rent for some sort of monthly fee. That was a question I got quite a bit on my last videos. How much will these Sovereign Worlds cost? And we really don't know the answer to that just yet. It's yet to be determined. So moving along from that, the main addition to this testing version is that now there are creative Sovereign Worlds. So a quick overview of creative worlds and their features. Number one, you have unlimited blocks and tool durability, so nothing runs out and nothing breaks. You will be able to give yourself anything from the knowledge menu, or rather the knowledge menu doubles as a give menu, as well as an option for unlimited health, stamina, and breath. In short, you are invulnerable, you can't die in any way, and particularly that infinite stamina is very nice. There's also a separate permission for flying, so you and your citizens will be able to fly around the creative world. Should be super helpful for building. You'll also be able to change the world colors at any time. So you want a different color of stone? Just change it. Not to mention all 255 colors are available for the world colorization itself, as well as just giving yourself blocks outright. And since beacons are still necessary to protect your builds from world regeneration, other players, as well as to enable features like settlements and capitals, etc., you will have access to unlimited plots while on creative worlds. An important thing to note is that the previous version of creative mode and the Lua scripting is still available. It's just been renamed to local sandbox. So you can go through the debugging menu, local sandbox, and you can still play around with that version of creative mode as well as the Lua scripting. Lua scripting, however, is not available for creative Sovereign Worlds, which honestly makes sense because while Lua scripting is kind of in a sandbox, it hasn't been fully tested, plus it has server performance implications. So yeah, no Lua scripting for creative worlds just yet. So in other words, it is a sandbox where you can let your imagination run wild without any of the constraints of the survival play mode. And if you look over here, you can see we have a reskinned user interface over here. This is to highlight that while the creative Sovereign Worlds will be essentially part of the survival universe, they are set apart in many aspects. So while you're on a creative Sovereign World, you have a dedicated creative inventory that's shared between all Sovereign Worlds that are creative, as well as a special skill set for creative worlds, and basically anything that you might want to bring from creative over to survival, well, you can't. The one kind of exception to this rule is that whenever you open up warps, they still cost you coin. However, when you're on a creative world, you cannot generate any coins. So sorry, you can't take all that decorative rift you just gave yourself in creative mode and stick it in a chrysominter and make as much coin as you want. Yeah, that doesn't work. You also can't bring anything back from a creative world onto the regular survival world. That includes buffs, health, stamina, pretty much anything you can imagine. You can bring buffs from survival over to creative, or rather they're kind of copied and then they're available on creative, but beyond that, it doesn't go the other direction. So you can't come over to creative and heal yourself up and put out all these really cool buffs that you gave yourself for free and then take them over to survival. So none of those type of shenanigans should work. And if we come over to the knowledge tree, you can see that it now doubles as a essentially a give menu instead of a shop scanner. So we can go to this ancient wood trunk and literally pick any which color that you want. So we can do this luminous verdant, We can add it. It says that we already have it in our inventory. However, we can pick another color and give that to ourselves as well. So for blocks, you can have essentially one of every single color, assuming your inventory can even fit that many. However, for equipment, you can only give yourself one of those at a time unless you put one of them into an inventory first. So I could give myself this topaz chisel, come over here, put it into, say, this forge, and then give myself a second one, and then retrieve it out of the forge. The one problem here is that if you want these to smart stack together, well, you're putting infinite topaz chisels into a smart stack with another infinite topaz chisels, so it essentially just gets deleted. The one thing where this is a little bit of a problem is that you still have to actually forge your equipment if you want forged equipment. And rather, if you're wanting like the special auto door spanners and say lattice chisels, you might even need a changing chisel just for the marble blocks with the figures on them. So yeah, the Oortian marble miner. So you need the changing chisel just to get the other variations of this. So forging is still very much necessary. And actually, since it has been long enough, we can take this wood hammer out that I forged with AoE and speed. So, ooh, I can actually damage things with this. And I guess we can go ahead and pull out another wood hammer, and they're probably going to delete each other, or, you know, one's going to delete the other one. Ooh. But at least with wood tools, I guess you could just give yourself a different color, and then that should prevent the problems. Oh, but look at that. So forged things they're different enough that they don't override each other. That is really nice. Okay, that makes me feel a lot better. So you could have, say, two topaz chisels, one forged, one unforged, and it looks like they should be fine. So that is really nice. The interesting thing about forging on creative is that you have infinite ingredients. So you can really make some crazy forged items if you know how to essentially generate infinite vigor and infinite stability. You can max out pretty much any tool you can imagine. If you're curious on how to do that, you can check out my Lucent forging video that kind of shows you how to generate extra vigor and extra stability. It is a little kind of tedious in that, you know, it'll take like 300 plus rounds depending on what you're forging, but still, it is very much doable, and it's just a matter of keeping the steps straight. Another little tidbit about forging is that at least currently using deconstruction resin is not exactly a good idea. I guess something about recovering infinite items to then replace on top of more infinite items. Yeah, the server didn't really care that much for it, but having some kind of oops, I made a mistake and forgot to bring vigor catalyst would be a nice option, because yeah, currently I guess I could break the machines, but then I would lose out or have to re-dig out all of those ingredients out of the give menu, or who did it actually? I wonder if it crashed the world outright. There's also this kind of weird little wonky handshaking thing that goes on as the server kind of sees, oh, this is a creative planet, I need to load these creative skills, and kind of little disorienting there at first. So in a nutshell, creative sovereign worlds act pretty much exactly like regular sovereign worlds with a few key differences. So if you come over to the world control and block colors, you can see there's no button to finalize the block colors. Which is to say, you can change the colors as much as you want. You don't have to finalize them. In fact, if there was a finalize, there really wouldn't be much of a point because, well, there are no drops on creative mode to begin with. So Come over here, and let's say I want to harvest some rock. Well, nothing drops, which, you know, there's not really much of a point considering you can give yourself any block in the game, any color, for free and in an infinite amount. The one thing that you do have to keep in mind, since there's no drops, if you throw stuff on the ground, it doesn't actually make it to the ground. And as you can see, you can fly, and there is invulnerability. These two options are enabled by default. However, there are permissions on the world control that you can toggle these things on and off, so you could make it to where people can't fly and that they are not invulnerable. So we can disable this. We would take damage and use stamina, as well as be able to suffocate. But if we enable it, we can essentially breathe underwater. We never run out of stamina, etc., etc. The running out of stamina part, that's actually quite nice. But on PC, you can hit F to fly by default. You can fly underwater. You see, you still get the breath gauge, but it never ticks down. So very, very nice. So a quick side note on the flight permission: if you disable this, anybody that's currently flying will stop flying. It'll be the same as if they just turned off flight, essentially mid-flight. And if invulnerability is disabled, then they could potentially die, which really, it's creative. Nothing really to worry about. You cannot get a death penalty or anything like that, so really it's a minor inconvenience, but you might keep that in mind as you're playing around with these, or if you're just wanting to be a little mischievous. I suppose you could kind of torture your residents or playmates. But and interesting enough, it looks like the invulnerability in flight is a blanket permission, so it's kind of an all or nothing. You can't dole it out to individual players, which for the flight, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that, but at the same time, it's like, if some people can fly, just let everybody fly. So I don't see much of a reason to ever disable it, unless maybe disabling invulnerability for testing things out, like say combat, because meteors will still fall on the planet if it's the appropriate level and whatnot. So of course you're not going to get meteors on like a level 1 world, but this, I think it's a level 5 corrosive world, definitely does get meteors. And a few more tidbits on essentially kind of the limitations of creative mode is that you cannot claim any rewards, you cannot gain any experience, you cannot gain any coin, you basically cannot gain anything while you're in creative. So that also includes journal objectives. As you can see, you can't even look at them in creative mode. So journal unavailable in creative mode. So in other words, you can't use creative mode to basically cheat your way to success, in other words. That also means that you cannot activate guild buffs on creative worlds, but since you can bring buffs from survival onto creative, you might still be able to get some guild buffs. Really, the only one I would want would be the I think it's the build safety, not for, of course, the fall protection, but rather the interaction range. That would be quite handy in a creative world to be able to, you know, when you're building, to be able to place blocks from even farther away. That and maybe even I guess some sort of building buff. It gives you extra chisel durability, which of course doesn't matter, but it also gives you extra block placement speed. So there are some guild buffs that would be really handy to have on the creative worlds. As far as portals, the idea is that you'll be able to fuel portals infinitely. As you can see, there's an infinite mark on this Oort chart. Unfortunately, when you put it into portal conduits at the moment, it only looks like there's one of whatever you put into it. So I thought I was going to open this big huge portal, but as you can see, it says I only have 3 Oort power or whatever. If I put the regular fuel, of course it's 1, and I need 450 to open up this portal. Even if it was the smallest portal possible, I'd still need 50. So eventually you'll be able to open as many portals for free as you want. There is plans of allowing you to connect to the world that the sovereign world is orbiting, or rather the creative sovereign world is orbiting. You'll be able to feel that from the creative world for free. So in other words, you won't have to, if all you want to do is play on creative, you don't have to still play on survival just to be able to fuel your portal that connects you to the survival universe. Yeah, it's kind of like, really, what? But that also has a few concerns that other players have brought up of like, well, okay, yeah, you can only connect to the planet that you're orbiting, so you can't set up a portal hub for free to the entire universe. But if you can do more than one or unlimited portals, you could literally set up an entire hub for the planet that you're orbiting around for free. So that's not good. Currently, you can't even open up the portal like I showed because of the fuel reasons, but since the inventories are completely separated, you can't even get the portal tokens from survival onto creative or creative onto survival. So they'll need some way to circumnavigate their own protection system, so to speak, to allow that to happen. And I have a feeling you might only be able to open up one portal from creative to survival because, yeah, creating an entire planetary hub on creative, that's a little overpowered. As I mentioned before, you have a special creative skill page that is free to move points around. I halfway wonder why they don't just give you unlimited skill points to just go ahead and fill out the entire tree just to make things simple, but I guess it also doubles as like a skill calculator or kind of test drive a skill page before you try it out on survival, so it's not without any purpose. But you can just move these around. It doesn't cost anything. You can see you have infinite cleanse points and infinite skill page reset tokens, so it doesn't cost anything to move points around, and pretty nice. So while you cannot claim rewards from the exchange, you can still actually buy things and they will carry over to the survival world. So theoretically, I can still buy plots. Granted, I can't see how many plots I have currently because, well, it just shows infinity. But more importantly, or more relevant at least, is that you can buy basically all the cosmetics, and they will carry over. Of course, it still costs you qubits. You're not really getting anything for free here. But in other words, you can still customize your character and not have to like reduplicate it when you go back to survival. So the cosmetic aspects of your character will carry over both ways. So enough about the limitations of Creative World, or rather the kind of protective features installed into it. What is this actually for? Well, if you're familiar with voxel games in creative mode, well, it's so you can build to your heart's content and you don't have to worry about all of the survival nitty-gritty of making sure something doesn't kill you or you jump off a mountain and die, etc., etc. You don't have to gather all the blocks, and yeah, you just build to your heart's content. You have infinite land plots. You still require beacons because yes, the worlds will continue to regenerate, but more importantly, you need the beacons to protect your cool, amazing works of art from, well, other players that might visit your planet. Of course, you could lock down your planet to where you're literally the only person that can visit it, but this is a MMO sandbox voxel type game, and where's the fun in nobody ever seeing your amazing works of art? So in that sense, you do still need beacons, but like I said, infinite land plots, and also allows you to dole out permissions to your build if you want to do a collaborative effort. And heading over to the places menu, you can see that even though it's a creative world, it still keeps track of prestige. This is needed for several different reasons, but also it helps give you a scale of what you have done. Prestige is not really a measure of like how cool your place is, rather how much time has been invested into it. So blocks that take more time to craft, more resources to gather, has a higher prestige value. So it's more a measure of time. So this actually gives your builds a sense of scale of like, okay, if I wanted to build this on survival, you know, how much prestige, or rather how much time investment would you be actually looking at? It's also very much necessary for the formation of capitals and settlements and this, that, and the other. For all of those systems to work, of course, there's no footfall. Again, you cannot generate any coin on survival worlds, but still, for the purposes of settlements, capitals, etc., prestige is still tracked. As you can see, it does have this kind of little paint easel color palette thingy to denote that this is prestige generated on a creative world, and it won't count towards any guilds or anything, you know, so it provides no benefit carrying over into the survival universe. Okay, well, I think that covers Creative Sovereign Worlds pretty well. Pretty exciting feature, especially for those that just want to build. I hear this over and over of players that, oh, I just want to build all these masterpieces. I don't want to have to worry about plots or gathering all the blocks. Personally, I'm kind of one of those. I get bored really fast in creative mode, so that's not overly appealing. But However, I do really like to tinker with things, and so having access to a creative world is very appealing in that sense of like testing things out, maybe prototyping a build before I try to do it in survival. So even for me, I'm pretty excited for this. I'm wondering, is like, do I want a creative world? Do I just want my own personal sovereign world to build on that's still survival, etc. So can't wait to find out more information about these sovereign worlds, particularly how expensive they're going to be, because that will certainly determine how many of these things I end up getting. But at any rate, this was Jiivita. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to see more like this. And if there's anything you didn't like, please let me know down below. Also, if you like my channel, want to get cool perks, check out my Patreon page. Until next time, peace.